In this video, we're going to discuss the consumer buying process. And the consumer buying process is a series of stages or steps that we as consumers go through when we're attempting to purchase a new product. Also applies for a service. And you may be asking, well, what is the significance of this? Why do businesses need to even be aware of the different steps that we go through? And the answer is very simple. By understanding all of the different stages that we venture through before we decide to purchase a product, they can develop and tailor their promotional messages to us as we go through these steps. So depending upon the stages that we lie in, their promotional messages may look a little bit different because they're tailored to someone who might be generating a problem or a need or searching for information. And I'll explain a little bit about this as we go through the series of steps. But let's get started. The first step that we go through is a problem or a need. We develop a recognition that we have a problem and we need something to fulfill that particular issue. Now, how do we generate problems or develop needs? Well, marketing, specifically advertising, is very creative in actually creating and cultivating different needs and at least making us feel like we have a need. Whether it be a fancy car commercial and we feel like we have a need for a new automobile, the one in our driveway just isn't cutting it. Or it's a fancy brand new house with all the different designs and it's new and it has all these different features and things, and all of a sudden the house that we're in isn't just quite cutting it anymore. And this applies to a variety of different things. Electronics, for example. You see an advertisement for a new electronic, it does all these different things and yours doesn't quite do those things. Those all force us to, or at least encourage, the development of needs and thinking that the item or product that we are essentially using is insufficient for all intents and purposes, and that this one product or service will essentially fill that void or that gap, if you will. And so we all start by having some type of problem or need, whatever it may be. It can be a number of different things, whether it's a need for some type of transportation. We have a vehicle that breaks down, and all of a sudden we have a need for transportation. So once you've assessed your need or problem, we have to go through what we call the information search stage. And in that stage, what we're trying to do is we are trying to evaluate all of the different possible sources that could solve our particular problem. So let's just say that we have a problem with a vehicle of ours breaking down. Well, we have to basically search for what are all the different things that can possibly solve this particular problem. Okay, well, there's a number of different things, right? We can try and repair the existing car, so do some type of repair. We can purchase another vehicle. We can purchase a bicycle. Or we can get a bus pass, or really anything. I mean, if our sole problem is transportation, then there are a number of different things that can ultimately address that particular issue and solve that particular problem. And so once we've evaluated, or once we've gathered as much information as possible, and mind you, the sources that we gather them from, they're going to be a number of different sources, right? We're going to consider our personal sources, right? Family and friends. We're going to go with them and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or, what have you purchased in the past? Does it work for you? All those different things. We're going to go based upon our own experience, right? If we have a Ford and it broke down consistently, chances are we probably aren't going to buy a Ford car or pickup, because we have that bad experience. We're going to go through public sources. We're going to look at things like Kelley Blue Book. We're going to look at different sites, cars.com, and a variety of other sources to determine, well, what's the most effective use of our resources. Once we've done that, we're going to do what's called an evaluation. We're going to evaluate all the different alternatives that we have at our disposal. There are a number of different things that ultimately we can do. And so what is the best based upon our particular position? And so ultimately we have to weigh those and figure out what is the best use of our money. Different products and services may fit our needs differently. There isn't one that's best for everyone, of course. And so we have to evaluate all of those different things that we have. The next thing that we do is we engage in a purchase decision, which means we make an actual purchase of the product or service. And we engage in purchases for a number of different reasons, right? We have very rational motives in which it's based upon maybe an evaluation of attributes to maybe non-objective factors in different things. We're evaluating the costs versus the benefits. That would be very rational. We can also purchase things for very emotional reasons, right? We don't evaluate things that are objective. We consider things like likability. We consider, is this going to make people like me? Am I going to be popular because of product XYZ? What's the prestige factor? Am I going to feel important? Those are some things that we generally can consider. So when we engage in a purchase decision, we can evaluate things based upon rational motives, but we can also do so based upon irrational motives or emotional motives, if you will. So once we've engaged in the purchase decision, usually people think, well, it automatically stops there. That's it. We've purchased the product. We're done. We can move on, and there's nothing else to be done. But we have to consider also that there is what we call post-purchase behavior that has to be considered. And this commonly takes the form of what we call cognitive dissonance. And you may be somewhat familiar with this term before. It has a lot of importance for marketing, and advertisers and marketers more broadly pay a lot of attention to this concept here. Cognitive dissonance, very simply, is buyer's remorse. It's the tendency for consumers to rethink their purchasing decisions. Once a purchase has been made, we all go through this process to some degree. We often evaluate, well, did we make the right purchase? Is the product working out to the extent that I thought it was? And so if there's a disconnect there, that's going to increase our cognitive dissonance, if you will. Now, the other issue is that the greater the expense of the product or service, the more likely we are to engage in this process even to a greater degree. If we purchase something like a house, it's a significant expenditure. There's a significant amount of time that's invested in evaluating alternatives. There's a significant amount of money that's invested, obviously, in the purchase of the home. And so those are things that we're going to consider, and we're going to engage in cognitive dissonance to a greater extent. Now, knowing this, how do marketers combat our tendency to engage in cognitive dissonance, our tendency to evaluate our items and think, well, did we make the right decision? Because ultimately what could happen is if we feel like we've made the wrong decision, the product does not meet our expectations for whatever reason, if our cognitive dissonance is so great, then we could end up having to return that product, which results in lost sales. But not only that, then you have maybe a lost customer. Maybe we don't even return the product or service, but we tell everyone how horrible it is. And then those obviously aren't positive things for marketers. So what are some of the things that they can do to reduce our cognitive dissonance? Well, a lot of different companies, especially with products or services that are more expensive, will send you personalized letters in the mail, basically congratulating you on your purchase. And they'll say, hello, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. Congratulations on your purchase of product XYZ. You've purchased the best product that does XYZ, kind of reiterating the benefits of that particular product. And so they thank you for the purchase. They congratulate you almost like you've won some type of award. And that makes us feel good, right? It's like, yeah, I did make a right decision, didn't I? I am really smart. You're right. Thank you very much. But after that, they regurgitate all of the different benefits of the product. And so what that does in reading that is it familiarizes ourselves with why we purchased the product. And we think, oh yeah, you know what? It does do that. And you know what? You're right. It does do this as well. And so what they're trying to do is minimize the extent to which we engage in cognitive dissonance by doing that. And so there's a number of different things that marketers and businesses can do. But sending personalized messages, follow-up emails, maybe even follow-up phone calls. Once again, congratulating someone on the purchase, thanking them, reiterating benefits, and all these other different things are all done with the purpose of minimizing our buyer's remorse or cognitive dissonance. Now, just kind of moving backwards here, kind of up the consumer buying process in reverse order. You know, I mentioned that marketers and businesses will tailor their efforts depending upon what stage that we're in. And we've already discussed post-purchase behavior. But when we're in a stage to which we're engaging in a purchase, what's something that could actually be effective at that stage? Well, you might say that maybe the company will do various sales promotional methods, maybe offer discounts or some type of coupon or cents off or buy one, get one free. Those are all things that can be used in the purchase stage to help us lean one way or the other. If we're on the fence of two products, sometimes cost is the only thing that we're going to consider if everything else is basically equal for the most part. If products are considered to be neck and neck in terms of the value they provide me, then I'm going to go with cost ultimately as the final factor there. And so in stage 4, maybe it makes sense for companies to run sales promotions as a way of lowering those barriers to entry, those obstacles, meaning cost that I have to pay to obtain it, could be very, very effective. What about in evaluating alternatives? What is something that companies can do when consumers reside in stage 3? Well, one of the things they can do is you see a lot of advertisements that are run that basically just go over features and benefits, right? It's simply an explanation of what it is the product does, why it's better than anything else, what separates this product from others. A lot of magazine ads too, you'll see products that have just bulleted points, different features and benefits. And those are designed for consumers that are in the evaluation stage because they're at the point where they're trying to weigh their options. And now I have it very clearly and succinctly laid out there for me. It makes it much easier for me. Moving on, stage 2, information searching stage. General advertisements are generally helpful with regards to information search and also stage 1, generating problems or needs. You see advertisements that don't really explain a whole lot about the product. They're just designed to pique people's interests, so to speak. And so if I see a particular advertisement, I see a nice car, it doesn't explain, the advertisement doesn't tell me what the features and the benefits are or anything like that. I just know that it looks really nice and it looks like it drives really, really fast. And so those are some things that companies can do as a way of creating these problems and also assisting people gathering information is by making sure their products are upfront, they're very visible, people are exposed to them fairly regularly, but also as we kind of move through this consumer buying process, changing the advertisements so that once again, no matter what stage of the process I'm in, they have a targeted message to me in order to make me feel like I need to purchase this particular product or service.